I just finished filming like the longest video ever talking about Project Geo and like what all the information I already have for it, and like basically a rundown of all the ideas I have so far, most of them, and like what kind of documents and what kind of like plan I've already built for those ideas. And now I need to actually start actioning those. So also, reading update is that I finished The Wind Weaver. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great, honestly. Would recommend. I'm just a little sad now because it came out on my birthday this year, which was a little over a month ago. So I'm gonna have to wait so long for the rest of the series, but it's fine. I really enjoyed it. The only issue is that the reason I bought 2 books last week on Friday, less than a week ago, was because I was like, oh, well, I'll definitely get through one. So I should buy a second one so that I can read it on the plane tomorrow when I fly back to Canada. And now the problem is that I finished both and I still have a day before I fly back. So I bought another book, which is not great for the bank account, but like I said, I've like not bought any books this year. I've been using the library, so it's fine. I'll be using the library again as soon as I go back. It's called Lore of the Wilds. It sounds great. It says, a library with a deadly enchantment, a fey lord who wants in, a human woman willing to risk it all for a taste of power. It sounds great. I'm excited for it. And I need something to read on the plane. So yeah, those are the goals for this vlog. I just need to start outlining Project Geo, which is exciting. Hello, as you can see, we're home. I have been home for a few days. There's been some stuff going on that I haven't jumped into work and projects and stuff as I had anticipated. So I am just taking things slow. It's currently Tuesday. I have been thinking a lot about what I want to do for plotting when it comes to Project Geo, and I've actually come to the conclusion that I think this plot is going to be a little bit less than my plots have been in the past. I don't particularly want to have like a 10-page outline written for this story. I'm also hoping that since it's a standalone and like previously the projects that I have outlined have been for series, I am thinking that the outline is going to be shorter anyways. And also a big reason that I want this outline to be shorter is because I've just been like doing some research, watching some craft videos, rereading like notes and stuff that I had from my course in novel writing, and I'm just like, I think that I think I'm over planning, or my brain wants to over plan for this book. I feel like I'm shedding a lot of habits that I developed while working on Between the Waves for so long, and those habits did include doing large amounts of plotting, just because Between the Waves kind of required it. Like once it got into the nitty-gritty of what was going on, and once I confirmed that it was going to be a duology and I had a better idea of what was happening in the second book and like as a overall series arc, I needed to put more effort and more time and just more details into that plot to make sure that everything was making sense and like staying on track. So I'm focusing on reminding myself that I don't need to do that for this book, and that since this is my fun project, I think it would actually be better if I didn't. I think it would be a lot better if I focused on just plotting the basics, like the very basic plot points that I need to have, making sure that I know a really strong setup and certain things that need to happen by the midpoint and by the end for the purpose of like meeting the promise of the story. But beyond that, I want to let myself discovery write quite a bit, because I just think that that would be a really fun creative practice for me right now. So currently what I'm doing is I've looked up different plotting methods because I'm kind of curious and I want, like, I know quite a few, but I kind of just want to go through, see if there's any other basic ones out there that are maybe just covering like a very, very bare bones outline and kind of see how they do it and like what their strategies are. And then I'll probably make my own bare bones outline based on the plot structures and the outlines and stuff that I researched today and like what I think is going to work best for me. So I'm going to review plot structures, outlines, styles, and I'm just going to make something that's simple. I want like 5 pages max. Even that might be too much, but I just want it to be simple and clear around like the points that I know just like I really, really need them to happen for the structure of the story. And then beyond that, I just want to have fun. So yeah, that's the plan. I like started researching and then I found plot structures that I was like, actually, I'm probably just gonna stop researching right now because I think these are good enough. I think it'll be a bit of a mix and they're all classic, like absolutely classic structures. It's so funny because I picked 3 that I'm just gonna review and like decide which one I think is gonna work best for me or like pick and choose from them. And of the 3, 2 of them are ones that like I learned in English class in school, like, or in my creative writing class, like 2 of them, Freytag's Pyramid, which is basically it's like a line graph almost, and it shows you like the inciting incident, the rising action, the climax, the falling action, and then the resolution. I've learned that one in multiple creative writing classes now, and even like just when I was a child learning about stories basically, and the 3-act method, which is such a classic. So those both are ones that like I feel like I grew up using because that was just how stories were structured. And I think the nice thing about both of these actually is that they allow room for flexibility. Like I know that there's like the method where it's 3-act 27 sequences or 27 scenes, I want to say. And I just think that's too much for me. Like, I just think that I want to have the flexibility to really discovery write with this project. So then the 3rd option that I was looking at is the 7-point narrative structure from Dan Wells. I'm actually not familiar with this one. I think I've heard of it, but I've never like looked into it or anything. So the 7 points are the hook, so the status quo, plot turn number 1, which is an inciting incident, pinch point number 1, the situation escalates, midpoint, the protagonist shifts from being reactive to proactive, pinch point 2, a major setback occurs, plot turn 2, the key to victory is discovered, and then resolution, the conflict is resolved. Honestly, 3-act structure makes sense to me, but I think that I already by default write like that. So I think that I'm kind of going to do a mix between Freytag's Pyramid and the 7 points, the Dan Wells 7-point structure. I also think they work really well together. Like I think that they overlap a lot. I think it's just with the Dan Wells one, there's a little bit more information that I think is going to be helpful for me. So I'm going to put something together and then I'm going to start to try and build Project Geo into that structure. Okay, so I have set up some sort of outline. I honestly like went through the 3-act, just classic 3-act structure, the 7.1 and the pyramid. I don't remember what they're called now. So I basically read through descriptions of those structures and kind of what was supposed to be included in each one, what the idea was of that particular structure, and I've built an outline using bits and pieces from those structures. So, and I'll also put it up on the screen so you can see it, and I'm just gonna like block out anything that like, I don't know if it'll stay the same or if it would be like a spoiler. Basically I have each act and then I have a couple bullet points below each one for kind of like what I want to happen there structurally, and then a bullet point for each of those, which is basically like things that are already happening or scenes that I already have that I think would like support that part of the structure, if it makes sense. So for example, I have Act 1 and then I have 3 points that are kind of like the main things that I want included in Act 1. So the first one is the setup, which is like exposition, introduction to the status quo, some world building, and then like the promise of the story. It's just kind of like everything to actually set up the plot. And I've already got like the main points that I kind of want to make sure are covered in the beginning of this. And then I have the inciting incident will be in Act 1. We already have that. And then introduce the core characters. So kind of like putting the team together is going to be a part of this story. So like I've actually pretty much written everything up until introducing like the rest of the core characters kind of thing. So by the end of Act 1, we need to have kind of like collected or been introduced to all of like the core characters that are going to be in the story. And then I have also moving from Act 1 into Act 2 is there's a bit of like push and pull. So like the main character is kind of deciding if this is something that she really wants to do and like going a little bit back and forth and considering her options sort of thing. And then obviously that kind of like transition ends with the character accepting the call to adventure. So then for Act 2, the first point is actually kind of like, it's not really in chronological order, I guess, for how things will be written in Act 2. The first point is basically a question, which is like, what is blocking the protagonist? So what's in the way of the protagonist? And I have a couple things. So it's kind of like, what are the antagonists that need to be part of the conflict and the back and forth and the fun and games as like we get into Act 2. So I kind of have some notes on that. It's like kind of emotionally what's going to be blocking her from developing as a character and from like completing her arc. So I have like emotionally what will be blocking her, and also kind of like physically real world, what are the antagonists that she's going to have to kind of try and face throughout this story. And then I have the fun and games, or the wins and the losses, or like the pursuit of the promise. And I also think that I kind of want to try and focus on having 3 major events, I guess, happening that are leading up to the climax. So kind of like 3 major scenarios or events that are happening throughout Act 2 and all the fun and games and stuff that are bringing us to this final climax and then end of the story. I just think that kind of structure would help, but it still allows enough flexibility. Like I actually don't really know what those events are going to be yet. I have a good idea, but I'm not 100% sure. But 3 just feels like a good even number and something for me to at least focus on to get like the first draft of this out. And I got lots of notes on like the fun and games and scenes that I want included and that sort of thing. So then I have the midpoint, which I pretty much already know what the midpoint is going to be. I have a very, very good idea and I feel good about it. And I also feel like the midpoint has kind of just stayed the same since I got the idea for this story. So then we have the rising action. So this is like conflict that's occurring, romance, and characters that are developing, new things that are kind of getting in the way, or like perspectives that are shifting, I guess, when it comes to the main character. So I, again, have like a bunch of points and kind of scenes that I think would be good for this part of the structure and that I think would really like support the arc that I'm going for. And then I have the Dark Night of the Soul, or like All Is Lost, the low point towards the end of Act 2. And I pretty much have like how Estelle is feeling and the state that she needs to be in, as well as like the state that the team needs to be in. So like I know the status of everything, if that makes sense. But I don't have a plan for like how to get there or what exactly is going to lead to that, but I know what it needs to lead to, and there's like tons of options. So I think that will become a bit more clear when I'm actually like discovery writing. And then from Act 2 to Act 3 we get past the second point of no return, which is like the shift. This is like when, the key to victory is discovered. So basically like when things are shifting. And then Act 3 we have like leading up to the final battle, or what do they call it? Storm the castle, I think is another word for it. Honestly, like researching structures and seeing what the different terminology is that people use to describe those structures and like the different beats in the story, I actually find very helpful, because it helps me kind of like, it gives me variation and like different perspectives of like how you can look at story structure, and I find that to be very helpful for me, because in some situations like calling it like storm the castle would logically make more sense to me. So yeah, Act 3, the final battle, the climax, and then the resolution and denouement. So again, with the resolution and the end of this book, obviously it's a standalone, although there is one, I don't know, I'm tying off most loose ends except for one or two that aren't necessarily like big plot threads or anything. They're just pieces of the story that I think would be really satisfying, and that kind of like give the characters a future beyond where I finish writing the standalone, basically, but without it being like a cliffhanger. Like you have to have a second book to really be content with how the story is wrapped up. I actually have a bunch of points for Act 3. Like I know how this is going to end. I can see it. So I know very strongly how it's going to start. I know just clear with so much clarity how it's going to end, which is really interesting, because in the past I don't have a good idea of how my stories are going to end, and I'm curious to see if having such a clear idea of how I want this to end is going to make this process a lot easier for me, or like is going to make the story itself a lot stronger by the end of the first draft than like my previous ones have been, because previous drafts for other stories have been like, I don't know the end, and therefore there's a lot of work for me to do in developmental edits, because I think I was just a little bit too all over the place, or I changed the ending, and therefore like the dominoes were set off and I had to change tons of other stuff as well. But like in the case of Project Geo, I have such a clear idea of how it ends, and I know how I want to tie things off, and I know the arcs that I want to have. So I'm curious to see if that changes things and if that makes this process a bit smoother for me. We'll see. So I'm gonna leave it at that for now, because I do need to do some more work. I kind of just took like my lunch break to keep working on the plot. But now I need to do some more work, and then I actually have a writing group tonight. It's like a community writing group, I guess. It's just like hosted at the local library. I think it's very like broad, so I'm not sure what other people will be writing. I'm not really sure what the situation is with it. I just felt like I kind of wanted to like go and check it out and see if it's something that I might want to like continue. Because I've also been really wanting to have like a little bit more of a community of like people who write as well. So I don't know, I'm curious. I'm gonna go and check it out tonight and see how that goes, and the goal is to work on I guess continuing to draft Project Geo, since I have an outline now. Also, I'm just about to go for a walk, but I thought I'd mention that I've been listening to this podcast that V.E. Schwab hosts. This is what it's called. I forget what it's called. Something about the right way, where she interviews other authors, and she interviews such a variety of authors and like talks about their process and like how they create their stories and how they write and what their like lifestyle looks like. And it's so entertaining. She is a lovely host and I would recommend it. So I'm gonna go for a little walk and listen to that while I walk. Also, look, I made a t-shirt. This is a doodle of mine. I also made it, wait, in white, like that. I'm trying to like, I don't know. I just thought it would be fun because I do a lot of like, I don't know, digital illustration. This one was hand drawn first and then digitally illustrated. And I'm like testing out t-shirt fabrics and stuff. I don't know. I just thought it would be fun, and it's super comfy and I like how it turned out. So fun side hobby, I guess.